Hey, welcome back. This is Rob, the blind artist of Pennsylvania. Again, a little bit of background. I'm a former behavioral medicine specialist. I worked in a international caliber pain clinic. I was also a licensed alcohol and drug counselor for a number of years. I've stepped away from that primarily for health reasons and health concerns. I'm on the mend. Okay. Thank you for tuning in. This is a mind power primer. Today we're going to talk about going into what's called the waking daydream state. It's a deeper state than our previous training, which is alpha brainwave. And I talked a little bit about that doorway that can be opened to the infinite mind. With practice, you can do what the greatest mind masters have accomplished. Just be diligent, just be disciplined, and don't expect overnight results, but clearly within a week you'll start noticing something better, something different. You can change your attitude by changing your mind. Okay? I want to talk to you about a couple of people today who have done phenomenal things by waking up their powers of their mind. Before, we talked about David Blaine, and we talked about Wim Hof, and we talked about Master Moses. But I want to introduce you to a gentleman who's since passed, but his name is Jack Schwartz. Let me take you back to World War II. He was part of the Hungarian underground, and basically that's sort of like their version of special forces. And he was tasked to go into a concentration camp and try to spring the folks who were there under the Nazi control and regime. The unfortunate part for Jack is he didn't quite make it. He was captured. He was captured by the Nazis, and I say this to you in all bluntness, sometimes there are things worse than death. Particularly when you talk about the amount of torture that can go on in a prisoner of war situation. Well, not to get into the depth and detail, just know that they were testing every single pain message, nerve fiber in his body. And he said roughly after about the 20th day of being tortured daily, for him to cough up information, etc., something very strange happened to Jack. He said in so many words, he became freer than the Nazi guards that were torturing him. He said he didn't plan this, it wasn't mindful, it wasn't purposeful, but suddenly, no matter what they did, he was able to shut off the pain messages. No matter what they did, it was as though he were floating out of his body. And my estimation as a former psychotherapist and one who studied this is what I think happened was his spirit or his soul stepped forward and gave him capacities and abilities that had he not done that, probably he would have gone mad. Probably he would have basically melted down, because he said he was right on the verge of not being able to tolerate this anymore. And suddenly something changed, something happened for him. Fast forward to the modern day. Jack Schwartz is now going around the world doing talks and demonstrations. And his initial statement to people is, the average human being is acting mentally deficient, yet they don't know that they are. He says that because he says there are sleeping powers that are just waiting for you with practice to awaken. Now, not many of us would want to take the 20-day course in Nazi mind power, because that's exactly what Jack said he had. They gave him the 20-day course. Let me give you examples of what Jack could then demonstrate and do as a result of what the Nazis woke up for him. Not out of kindness, but out of necessity, it was woken up. Jack Schwartz has written a couple of books. You can Google them if you want. One skill that he demonstrated was the ability to put out his hand and dare you to take a lit cigarette and extinguish it in the palm of his hand. And he demonstrated this. And you would figure, okay, you extinguish it. Oh, he could tolerate the pain. He could tolerate the pain. But not only did he tolerate the pain as you were extinguishing that, when you pulled the cigarette around where you would expect to see a red, perhaps even a bloody blister. And Jack did not burn. Jack did not blister. Now that's mind over matter, isn't it? That's defying the laws of physics. And you'll oftentimes see people who have woken up this power. And Jack woke it up. I used to teach people this when I was working as a behavioral medicine specialist. I told people there were two things that wake up mind powers: extreme pain or cultivated peace. I oftentimes recommended the latter, not the former, because we don't get the chance. You will see people, to digress a little bit here, you will see people who place meat hooks in their back and hang themselves. And there's a reason they're doing that. They're waking up powers that come to the fore when you're undergoing extreme pain. Not only do they come to the fore, they release endogenous morphine, which is called endorphins. I call them endolphins. It makes it easy to remember. So when we think about what Jack Schwartz could do, let me give you another example. He was on the Guinness Book of World Records. At this point, I think he was in his 60s. And when he was in the Special Forces, the Hungarian Underground, he was in his late 20s, a very beefy guy in great shape. And here he is on the Guinness Book of World Records, laying down on a bed of nails. They placed 2 tons of cinder blocks on him. That's enough to think about that. But then he had a second, or an assistant, take a large sledgehammer and smash those cinder blocks on top of him, that were on top of him, until they were all in a state of fragment and dust. And here's Jack Schwartz laying calmly, but looking almost like he's semi-comatose or dead. He had placed himself in a very deep trance state. And my work with this it's called a plenary trance, for any of you who want to look this up. It's called a plenary trance. It's a very deep trance. And he, at that point, was taking the Nazi training and taking it up another notch. And he told himself that his body was a steel beam, an I-beam that's used in large buildings. And the body listened. And it created what has been termed a state of living rigor mortis. Jack Schwartz also set the world record at one point for the barefoot firewalk, walking over 2,000 degree coals. And there's no trick to this. It's not because there's dust on the coals. If you don't know what you're doing and you're starting to do the firewalk like this, you're going to get shorter with each step as it begins to melt down your legs, okay? You'll be burned severely. And Jack Schwartz, I think, walked 200 yards over this firewalk. Right now, there are various world records that have exceeded that considerably. Let me give you a demonstration of this. Again, I used to demonstrate mind power. I used to go into schools. I used to do this in hospitals. I was a motivational speaker of sorts before I got sick. And one demonstration that I've given, and if you get a chance, when I do this training for you, you could bring a second person into the room with you. And that's usually what I would do. Pair people up in the audience. And I would basically do what's called the steel ring test. And this is a test of your ability to wake up and tap into your imaginative powers. The imagination is limitless. The imagination is actually the doorway. Probably indirectly, Jack Schwartz had tapped into his imagination. In fact, he mentioned being able to go to a place in his mind as the Nazis were torturing him. He could be in 2 places at one time. So I'm going to do this demonstration right now. It's called the steel ring demonstration. And if you bring a second person into the room, that will be very helpful because I can have each of you try this out. One of you decide who's A and the other who is B. Very simple, okay? So what I'd like participant A to do is take on your dominant hand, I'm right-handed, take your your thumb and your index finger, and I want you to hold them together as such. And I want you to do is I want you to try to hold them as tightly as possible, as tightly as possible. And I want participant B to come and try to separate those two fingers and generally estimate how many pounds do you think per square inch of force you had to use to pull that apart, okay? Think about like holding up an average watermelon. That's maybe 15, 20 pounds. Or holding up a car battery. That's like 40 pounds. So just get a general estimate of how much force it's going to take, okay? At the count of 3, I'd like participant B to go ahead and separate those two fingers. Don't worry, you're going to win because it's 2 arms against 2 fingers. But your job, participant A, is to hold that as strongly as you can. Use all your willpower, every bit of it. Ready? At the count of 3, B, go ahead and try to separate that and estimate how much force it's going to take. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Very good, very good. Okay. Not many people have ever been able to succeed in this first part of the formula. Okay? Now we're going to have the opposite occur. I'd like to have participant B do the same thing. Okay, go ahead. Put those two fingers together, and you know what's coming next. And participant B, you kept an eye on how many pounds generally you think it took. Okay, just keep a note of that. All right, and so what I'd like you to do is participant A, go ahead, come up. At the count of 3, B, you go ahead, you fight as much as you can. Willpower it right up, okay? 1, 2, 3. Go ahead, separate those two. All right. A, kind of get a sense of how many pounds it took to separate. Like I said, 99.9% of the people who I did this demonstration with were able to separate those two. There's the rare few that were already ahead of the course, so to speak. All right? What I'm going to do now is, again, I'd like participant A to do this second part of this in a different way. The first time you guys both did this, you were using willpower. You're using conscious force. And let me give you a hint. Conscious force is capable of processing 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information per second at baseline. That's why phone numbers are 7 digits long. That's why we need a conscious capacity of the mind, because otherwise, if you walked into any new situation, it would overwhelm you. I'm going to tell you quickly, statistically, 98% of what's going on around you in your environment, you're unaware of on a conscious level. You need to be unaware of that because you would be overloaded otherwise, all right? But there's a power, and it's called the sleeping 95% of the mind. There's a power waiting for you to wake up. Wake it up. Nobody most likely taught you how to do this as a child. Nobody taught you how to do this as an adult. How is the operative word. How to awaken these powers, what's called the sleeping 95%. And what I've been calling in this training, the powers of your limitless or infinite mind. All right? So now what we're going to do is, again, place those fingers together. Participant A, close your eyes. This is key. I want you to do is begin to listen to my words. And it's okay if what I suggest to you, you modify or you do it in your own way. It's okay if what I say to you, you picture and it fades in and out. It doesn't have to be a perfect HD movie. All right? I'd like you to do is begin to imagine a steel ring. I'd like you to imagine a steel ring. It is drop forged. That means it's one complete circle. There's no weld in it. It was forged in completion. It's completely round and round and round. I'd like you to do as you see and sense, and you keep thinking this image, steel ring, that you begin to bring that information, you begin to bring that suggestion to the fingers of that hand, to the thumb, to the index finger, and notice that it itself begins to respond as you begin to hear these words and you begin to focus your mind. And it's okay if your mind gets distracted. It notices sounds over here, it notices the music in the background. I want you to simply think steel ring, because the imagination is at least 100 times more powerful than willpower. This is the unconscious mind capacity that can process 350 million bits of information per second at baseline. This is the sleeping 95% of your mind's power. Because if I speak to you, I am speaking to the boss part of your mind. Steel ring, and you may begin to feel and experience in that steel ring power. And I'm going to do is count to 5, and when I reach 5, participant B, you can test that steel ring, but the minute you feel a touch, participant A, to that steel ring, it will quadruple, quintuple, it may go 6 or 7 times more powerful, and the harder that person B is pulling, the more your steel ring power steps in. This is chi energy. This is the exact doorway that breaks a brick with the head, breaks a board with the hand, and helps you to walk across hot coals to tolerate a burn that would blister. This is the doorway. This is what's being used by Wim Hof of Norway. All right, let's begin now. Steel ring. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead, participant B. 4, 5. Test that steel ring. And notice, participant B, how many pounds of force you're having to exert now. And with each pound that you exert, the steel ring power triples, quadruples, doubles, quintuples. And notice how it is an unstoppable power. This is exactly what Jack Schwartz used, exactly what Wim Hof uses, exactly what David Blaine uses. It's the infinite power of the mind. I'm not having to test mine, but mine is completely locked up, I assure you. I broke a brick when I was 16. Okay, let it go, release. And what I want you to remember, if you could, participant A, is anytime you need to take on an obstacle, anytime you need to overcome something or it needs a solution, all you'll need to do to tap into this mind power is to close those 2 fingers together. Go ahead and do it now. It's called anchoring in neuro-linguistic programming language. Put it together and say in your mind the word or the phrase steel ring. Okay, let's do that. Let's anchor that. We're going to do it 4 more times. Ready? Put it together. Steel ring. Very good. Put it together. Steel ring. 2 more times. Put it together. Steel ring. Okay, 1 more time. And remember, what we're doing this for is overcoming any obstacle, anything that requires the confidence, the capability, and the power that's sitting at the depth of your infinite mind. And finally, steel ring. Very good. Let that go. Just like you planted a powerful seed, it's already working for you now. All right? Let's do that. Now we got to give participant B a chance to see how their imagination, see what happens sometimes. The participant B kind of gets advanced notification. They kind of get a sense of things already in advance, and they oftentimes will do even better than participant A because they've already been given hints, and that's fine. It's okay. It's not cheating. It's just your unconscious mind was picking up things along the way. That's how powerful the unconscious is. And I'm going to remind you of this fact before we do this test, is again at baseline, your unconscious, your subconscious mind is capable of processing 350 million bits of information per second. Remember, this is the part of the mind that created the computer. The computer is amazing, but the energy and the intelligence that created the computer is amazing times 100. All right? So participant B, it's your chance. I'd like you to do is, again, take those two fingers together. And I'd like you to do is close your eyes. And this is the doorway to your infinite mind, because when you close your eyes, you open your imagination. As you close your eyes, you open your imagination. And I'd like you to begin to remember what I was talking to you about before, and you picked up hints about this, is begin to imagine a perfect steel ring. It's drop forged in Slalagen, Germany. Some of the finest steel in the world is made there. It's tempered. And it's one complete loop. It's not forged in the sense it wasn't welded. It was drop forged, completely one steel round ring. And I'd like you to do is begin to communicate that message of steel ring power to the fingers, to the thumb and the forefinger of that hand. I'd like you to begin to think in your mind as you see this steel ring and you begin to feel it, begin to communicate that information of a steel ring power to the hand, and just begin to communicate it so that that loop is a steel ring. With each and every exhaling breath, notice that the steel ring is getting stronger. Each and every inhaling breath, it seems like it's drawing in chi energy. And you may start to feel a tingling. You may start to feel something odd in that area, and that's okay, because the body listens to the mind. The body will very loyally, very literally listen to the mind, because if it is a steel ring, it is a steel ring. And begin to see the round and round and roundness of that steel ring. And participant A, I'd like you to do is at the count of 5, I'd like you to test that steel ring, but that steel ring will get stronger with each and every tug, with each and every touch, with each and every element of trying to separate it. It gets even stronger. It's as though it's being drop forged even more powerfully. And you'll begin to feel that odd sensation there. Participant B, you'll begin to notice that something is working in a powerful, easy way, in the way it helped Jack, in the way it helped David Blaine, in the way it's helped Wim Hof, in the way it's helped Master Moses. That is chi energy flowing round and round and round. That's right. Listen to these words, and anything that's going on in the background will simply focus your mind even better. Go ahead. 1, 2, participant A, 3, 4, and 5. Go ahead. Pull on that steel ring, and you know it gets stronger and more powerful, quadrupling, quintupling. Notice how unstoppably powerful it is. That's right. And participant B, notice how many pounds of square force you're pulling on this. That's just amazing. That's just amazing. Yes. Okay. Stop the demonstration now. Thank you for helping out. And participant A and participant B, both of you are helping each other. Right now, I want to do is anchor this in for you, participant B. Remember, the hand will feel a little odd for quite some time afterwards. Mine does. Mine feels weird. It feels almost still metallic. It still feels strange. And that's a cool thing. That means the body is still working and deepening the lesson, so to speak. It's like a new body of knowledge, a new body of knowledge. And I'd like you to do now to anchor this, participant B, is I'd like you to take the finger and the thumb. I'd like you to touch it together, remembering this is a chance for you to solve any problem that's coming your way, and touch them together and say in your mind, steel ring. If you see an obstacle that's going to require courage, that requires that you have the confidence that you can do this, go ahead, separate that. Put it together, steel ring. Say that in your mind. And you'll find yourself having the limitless mind power to solve whatever is before you. It may not be right away, but given time and allowing your unconscious and infinite, limitless mind, you will. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Okay, touch it together. Steel ring. Very good. Okay, separate it. Steel ring. Okay. This is called anchoring in neuro-linguistic programming language. It's actually Pavlovian. One more time. Separate. Back together. Steel ring. You'll make it so that anytime you can recharge this button to the body-mind by simply, and I'm going to do this just one more time for emphasis, separate it, put it together. Steel ring. You know. Let that sort of, sift in the back of your mind. Let your unconscious mind work with that message. That any time that you require your infinite mind to solve a problem, to get you through a certain situation or circumstance, you can do this subtly. You can do it sacredly, so no one knows that you're doing it. And it's very simple. Okay? You've opened a doorway to this power. I'm going to do at least a little bit of a talk about, the fact that while this was going on, you actually shifted into alpha naturally. But I want to talk briefly about this, and then the next training video we're going to talk about the waking dream state that Carlos Castaneda has talked about. There are brain waves that are measurable. Let me walk you through them briefly. Beta is a brain wave that's 12 to 38 cycles per second, or what are called hertz, okay? That's what beta is. Not that you have to know the science behind it, but beta is an alert state. It's certainly the state you need to be. For example, if you're riding a motorcycle at 75 miles an hour down the highway, you need to be in beta. Focused, alert, ready. That's your awake, focused mind state, okay? So that's beta. The next one we've talked about briefly, and it is alpha. Alpha is 8 to 12 cycles per second, or hertz, okay? Alpha is a daydreamy, calm, peaceful state. But if I gave you a hint later on, those who meditate can not only be daydreamy and calm, but they've learned to be both that and focused and alert at the same time. And that's the trick, I think, to meditation, is that not only are you calm and peaceful, but you're hyper-focused. Now you're taking a quality from beta and you're moving it into alpha, yet you're not in beta mind state. Okay, you're not in the beta mind state. So I'm going to give that as a hint later. And I think at some point when you're doing the steel ring, you were probably already tapping into that nice combination of alpha with beta awareness. Now that's a cool thought, isn't it? We're going to table that, and we'll continue to talk about these states along the way. The next state is, I'm going to hint about it, and then we're going to end our discussion today, because you've done enough. I want you to do over the course of today is practice your anchor, steel ring, now and then when you're bored and you're not doing something or whatever, or the situation, and practice it, and notice how more and more of your mind power has come to the fore. More and more of your creative solution generating power has come to the fore. Okay, so 10 times a day, that'll open up the doorway. There's a way to think about it, okay? The next state is actually the yogi state that they talk about. It's a state that's right on the verge, at the deepest level of sleep. And let me quickly talk about sleep, which is the delta brainwave. Delta is 0.3 to 3 hertz, or cycles per second. Sleep, we'll talk about that later. There's something you can do in the delta state that has already been proven. Sleep learning, problem solving, invention, creativity. Thomas Edison would go into sleep and take a nap and wake up having created and invented something. It's well known, it's well established. Okay? But this is the importance of theta. Theta brainwave is 3 to 8 cycles per second. It's a slumbering, almost sleep state. It's the state of mind where you can do what's called vivid, or basically lucid dreaming. You can go in, be both the dreamer and the dream maker, and the one that is dreaming. So I'm going to leave you with that teaser for our next video, where we're going to talk about mastering the deep theta state. Thanks a lot, and I have a simple slogan: believe you can, and you will. Hey, good luck. Remember, practice that steel ring power 10 times today, and watch how your life is transformed. The power's in your hands. See you next time. Believe you can, and you will.